The unexpected interview, the towering glass building of Blake Industries, stretched into the Manhattan sky like a crystal monument to wealth and power. Amelia Rodriguez stood at its base, clutching her worn leather portfolio and fighting the urge to turn around and catch the next bus back to her small farming town in Nebraska. Her reflection in the polished marble showed a young woman in her best interview outfit, a navy blue dress she had bought at a discount store and carefully pressed the night before, paired with sensible black flats that had carried her through 4 years of college. Amelia possessed a brilliant mind that had earned her summa cum laude honors in economics from the State University. Her professors had encouraged her to pursue opportunities in major cities, but nothing had prepared her for the intimidating world of corporate Manhattan. The receptionist, a perfectly manicured woman with platinum blonde hair, looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "You must be here for the cleaning position," the receptionist said without looking up from her computer screen. "Actually, I have an interview with Cassandra Wells for the financial analyst position," Amelia replied politely, though her heart raced with nervous energy. The receptionist's eyebrows rose in surprise as she checked her appointment book. "Oh, well. Take the elevator to the 42nd floor and wait in the reception area." The mockery begins, the executive floor buzzed with activity as impeccably dressed professionals hurried between meetings. Amelia felt every eye upon her as she walked to the waiting area, her simple outfit standing out starkly among the designer suits and luxury accessories. She could hear whispered conversations and stifled laughter following her path. "Is that really one of our candidates?" she heard someone mutter. "Probably got lost looking for the cafeteria," another voice replied. Followed by more laughter, Cassandra Wells, the head of human resources, emerged from her office with a puzzled expression. She was a stern woman in her 50s, wearing an expensive gray suit and carrying herself with the confidence of someone who had climbed the corporate ladder through sheer determination. "Miss Rodriguez," Cassandra Wells, "please come into my office." The interview room was spacious and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. Cassandra sat behind a large mahogany desk, reviewing Amelia's resume with a frown. "Your academic credentials are impressive," Cassandra began, "but I have to ask, do you really think you're prepared for the fast-paced world of high finance? Blake Industries deals with billion-dollar transactions and international markets." "I understand the scale of operations here," Amelia responded confidently. "During my internship at First National Bank of Nebraska, I developed a risk assessment model that helped them avoid significant losses during the agricultural downturn last year. The principles of financial analysis remain the same regardless of scale." Cassandra's expression remained skeptical. "It's a small regional bank, Miss Rodriguez. We're talking about global markets here." Before Amelia could respond, the office door opened without warning. Jonathan Blake, the 32-year-old CEO and heir to the Blake Industries empire, strode into the room. He was tall and commanding, with dark hair and intelligent green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than Amelia's entire wardrobe. "Cassandra, I need the quarterly reports for the Henderson account," he said, then paused as his gaze fell upon Amelia. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were in an interview." "This is Amelia Rodriguez," Cassandra said with a slight edge to her voice. "She's applying for the financial analyst position." Jonathan's eyes swept over Amelia's appearance, taking in her modest dress and nervous posture. A slight smirk played at the corners of his mouth. "Interesting. And what makes you think you're qualified to work at Blake Industries, Miss Rodriguez?" The condescension in his tone sparked something fierce within Amelia. She had faced doubts and discrimination her entire life, but she had never let them define her limitations. "Mr. Blake," she said, rising from her chair with newfound confidence, "I graduated at the top of my class with a degree in economics and a minor in international business. I've studied your company's financial reports, and I believe there are significant opportunities for improvement in your emerging markets division." Jonathan's smirk widened. "Really? And what would a girl from..." He glanced at her resume. "Nebraska know about emerging markets? I know that your current strategy in South America is losing approximately $12 million annually due to currency hedging mistakes," Amelia replied without hesitation. Your risk assessment protocols fail to account for political instability. Factors that any first-year economics student should recognize. The room fell silent. Cassandra's mouth dropped open slightly, while Jonathan's expression shifted from amusement to surprise. The unexpected challenge, that's a very bold claim, Jonathan said, his tone now more serious. Our South American division is overseen by some of the most experienced analysts in the industry. Experience doesn't always translate to adaptability, Amelia countered. Sometimes fresh perspective can identify blind spots that experience has made invisible. Jonathan walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the city below. After a long moment, he turned back to face her. If you're so confident in your assessment, would you be willing to put it to the test? Kind of test? Amelia asked, though she could sense opportunity knocking. Give us a comprehensive analysis of our South American operations. If you can prove your claims and provide viable solutions, we'll consider your application seriously. You have 24 hours. Cassandra looked shocked. Jonathan, we can't give confidential financial data to someone who isn't even an employee. Then we'll make her a temporary consultant, Jonathan replied, his eyes never leaving Amelia's face. One day, Miss Rodriguez, show us what you can do. The night of determination, Amelia spent the rest of the afternoon in a small conference room, poring over financial documents and market reports. The data confirmed her initial assessment and revealed even deeper problems than she had suspected. Blake Industries was hemorrhaging money in South America due to outdated strategies and a fundamental misunderstanding of regional economic patterns. As night fell, the office grew quiet. Most employees had gone home to their comfortable lives. But Amelia remained at her borrowed desk, working by the light of her laptop screen. Her stomach growled with hunger, but she ignored it, sustained by determination and the coffee she had found in the break room. Around midnight, she was surprised to hear footsteps approaching. Jonathan Blake appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie and carrying 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might need this, he said, placing 1 cup in front of her. Thank you, Amelia replied, gratefully accepting the warm beverage. You work late hours, the price of leadership, he said with a slight shrug. How's your analysis coming along? It's better than I expected, actually. The problems run deeper than I initially thought, but that also means the potential for improvement is greater. Jonathan pulled up a chair beside her, studying the charts and graphs spread across the table. His proximity made her acutely aware of his cologne and the way his shirt sleeves were rolled up to reveal strong forearms. You know, he said thoughtfully, most people would have been intimidated by my challenge today. Why weren't you, Amelia? Considered the question carefully. I've been underestimated my entire life, Mr. Blake. My high school guidance counselor told me I should consider community college instead of university. My professor said I'd never compete with students from Ivy League schools. But I've learned that hard work and genuine insight often matter more than pedigree. Call me Jonathan, he said quietly. And for what it's worth, I hope you prove them all wrong. Their eyes met across the conference table, and for a moment, the corporate world faded away. Here was just a young woman with big dreams and a successful man who was beginning to see past surface appearances. The moment of truth the next morning. Amelia presented her findings to Jonathan, Cassandra, and several senior executives in the main conference room. She had prepared a comprehensive presentation that outlined not only the problems with Blake Industries' South American strategy, but also detailed solutions that could potentially save millions of dollars annually. Trevor Manning, the head of the South American division, sat with his arms crossed and a skeptical expression throughout her presentation. He was a man in his 50s who had built his career on traditional approaches and resented being questioned by someone he saw as an outsider. This is all very theoretical, Trevor interrupted as Amelia explained her hedging recommendations. You can't run international business from a textbook, young lady. You're right, Amelia agreed calmly. That's why my recommendations are based on actual market data from the past 5 years, adjusted for current political and economic trends. In each target country, she clicked to her next slide, which showed detailed projections for each South American market. Your current approach treats the entire continent as a single market, when in reality, each country requires a tailored strategy. Brazil's economy moves differently than Argentina's, and both respond differently to global market pressures than Colombia or Chile. Jonathan leaned forward in his chair, clearly engaged by her analysis. What kind of returns are you projecting with these changes? Conservative estimates suggest a 23% improvement in profit margins within the first year, with potential for 40% improvement by year 3 as local partnerships develop. The room buzzed with murmured conversations as the executives processed her projections. Cassandra made notes on her tablet, while Trevor's frown deepened. These numbers seem optimistic for someone with no international experience, Trevor said. Dismissively, before Amelia could respond, Jonathan spoke up. Trevor, your division has been underperforming for 3 consecutive quarters. I think it's time we listen to new ideas, regardless of their source. The meeting ended with Jonathan asking Amelia to prepare additional analysis for specific markets. As the room cleared, Trevor approached her with a cold smile. Don't get too comfortable, sweetheart, he said in a low voice. Corporate consulting is a lot different than classroom theory. You'll be gone within a month. Amelia watched him leave, recognizing the threat in his words. She had proven her analytical abilities, but she was beginning to understand that success in this world would require more than intelligence. It would require navigating corporate politics and overcoming the prejudices of those who saw her as an outsider threatening their established order. As she gathered her materials, Jonathan approached her once more. Impressive work, he said. I'd like to offer you a position as a junior financial analyst, with the possibility of advancement based on performance. Thank you, Amelia replied. Though she could see the skeptical faces of other executives still lingering in the conference room, I accept. What she didn't know was that her journey at Blake Industries had only just begun, and the challenges ahead would test not only her professional abilities, but also her strength of character in ways she could never have imagined. The first day trials, Amelia's first official day at Blake Industries, began with a series of small humiliations designed to remind her of her place. Her assigned workspace was a cramped cubicle in the back corner of the financial department. Far from the windows and natural light that the senior analysts enjoyed, the computer assigned to her was outdated, running slowly and freezing frequently. During important calculations, Rebecca Stone, a blonde analyst who had graduated from Harvard Business School 3 years earlier, made no effort to hide her resentment at Amelia's arrival. Rebecca had expected to be promoted to the South American account, and Amelia's sudden appearance threatened her carefully planned career trajectory. So you're the farm girl who impressed Jonathan, Rebecca said with a saccharine smile as she perched on the edge of Amelia's desk. How quaint. Suppose he finds your rustic charm refreshing. I prefer to be known for my work rather than my background, Amelia replied diplomatically, not looking up from her screen. Oh, honey, Rebecca laughed, loud enough for nearby colleagues to hear. In this business, background is everything. Clients want to work with people they trust, people from their own social circles. They don't want to explain their investment strategies to someone who probably grew up around cows. The comment stung because it contained a grain of truth. Amelia had indeed grown up on her family's small farm, helping with chores before school and working summers in the cornfields. But those experiences had taught her the value of hard work and practical problem-solving that her Ivy League colleagues often lacked. David Park, a quiet IT specialist who had been observing the exchange, approached Amelia's desk after Rebecca left. He was a Korean-American man in his early 30s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Don't let her get to you, he said quietly. Rebecca's been gunning for that promotion since she started here. She sees you as competition. Thank you, Amelia smiled gratefully. I was beginning to think everyone here resented my presence. Not everyone, David assured her. Some of us believe in merit over pedigree. If you need any help with the computer systems, just let me know. The machine they gave you is probably older than your college degree. The sabotage begins within her first week. Amelia noticed strange problems with her work. Reports she had saved would mysteriously disappear from the server. Her access to certain databases would be revoked without explanation, forcing her to request permission repeatedly. Email chains discussing important meetings would somehow exclude her, leaving her scrambling to catch up on developments The situation came to a head during a crucial presentation to potential investors from Japan. Amelia had spent days preparing detailed market analysis for expanding Blake Industries' electronics division into Asian markets. Her research showed promising opportunities in emerging technologies that could revolutionize their product line. On the morning of the presentation, she arrived early to set up her materials, only to discover that her presentation file had been corrupted. Panic set in as she realized she had less than an hour before the meeting and no backup of her work. "Problems?" Rebecca asked sweetly, appearing beside Amelia's cubicle with coffee in hand. "My presentation file won't open," Amelia said, frantically, trying different recovery methods. "Oh no, that's terrible timing," Rebecca replied with fake sympathy. "I suppose you'll have to present without visual aids. The Japanese investors are very particular about professional presentations." Amelia's mind raced. She knew her material inside and out, but corporate presentations relied heavily on charts, graphs, and visual data. Without her carefully prepared slides, she would appear unprofessional and unprepared. "David," she called out, hoping the IT specialist was nearby. "He's out sick today," Rebecca informed her with a smile. "Food poisoning, I heard. Very unfortunate timing." With 30 minutes until the meeting, Amelia made a desperate decision. Using her knowledge of the company's financial data and market research, she began recreating her key slides by hand on poster board. Her artistic skills were limited, but her understanding of the data was comprehensive. The improvised triumph conference room filled with executives and Japanese investors dressed in impeccable business attire. Jonathan sat at the head of the table, flanking by James Fletcher, a stern board member who had questioned Amelia's hiring from the beginning. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jonathan began, "Amelia Rodriguez will present our analysis of Asian market opportunities." Amelia stood at the front of the room with her hand-drawn charts, acutely aware of the surprised expressions around the table. The Japanese delegation exchanged questioning glances, clearly taken aback by the unconventional presentation materials. "Good morning," Amelia began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I apologize for the informal presentation format. Sometimes the most important insights come from getting back to the fundamentals of data analysis." Began explaining her research using her handmade charts to illustrate market trends and growth opportunities. What her presentation lacked in polish, it made up for in passion and depth of understanding. She spoke about demographic shifts in major Asian cities, emerging technology adoption rates, and cultural factors that would influence consumer behavior. As she warmed to her subject, something remarkable happened. The investors leaned forward in their chairs, asking detailed questions about specific markets and consumer segments. Her hand-drawn charts became conversation starters rather than embarrassments, showing a level of personal engagement with the data that impressed the traditionally minded Japanese businessmen. "Miss Rodriguez," said the lead investor, Mr. Takeshi Yamamoto, "your analysis of the Tokyo electronics market shows understanding that our own research teams missed. How did you identify the gap in smart home integration?" "I studied consumer complaint data from electronics retailers across 15 major Asian cities," Amelia explained. "The pattern showed consistent frustration with product compatibility issues. Consumers want integrated systems, not individual devices that don't communicate with each other." The meeting extended past its scheduled time as the investors continued asking questions. By the end, they had expressed serious interest in moving forward with a partnership, specifically requesting that Amelia be involved in the implementation planning. As the room cleared, Jonathan approached her with an expression of amazement. In something that might have been admiration. "That was either the most brilliant presentation I've ever seen, or the most fortunate disaster in corporate history," he said. "Sometimes when you lose everything, you discover what really matters," Amelia replied, gathering her makeshift visual aids. "What happened to your original presentation?" Jonathan asked. Amelia hesitated. She suspected sabotage, but accusations without proof would make her appear paranoid and unprofessional. "Technical difficulties," she said diplomatically. Jonathan studied her face, clearly sensing there was more to the story. "Technical difficulties seem to follow you around here." The growing connection that evening, as most of the office emptied out, Jonathan found Amelia still at her desk, working on follow-up materials for the Japanese partnership. "You know you can go home, right?" he said, pulling up a chair beside her cubicle. "Normal employees work normal hours. I want to make sure I'm prepared for whatever challenges tomorrow brings." Amelia replied, saving her work carefully to multiple locations. "Smart strategy," Jonathan said. "I've been thinking about what happened today. A kind of technical failure is unusual for our systems." Amelia looked at him carefully, trying to gauge whether he suspected the same thing she did. Technology can be unpredictable. "So can people," Jonathan replied meaningfully. "I've asked David to look into the server logs when he returns tomorrow. Just routine maintenance, you understand." Their eyes met across the small workspace, and Amelia felt a flutter of something more than professional gratitude. It was not just her boss, but a man who was beginning to see her as more than an outsider who had stumbled into his world. "Jonathan," she said softly, "why did you really hire me?" "It wasn't just the South American analysis, was it?" He was quiet. For a long moment, considering his answer. "You reminded me of why I went into business in the first place. Before the board meetings and shareholder reports and all the politics, you still see possibilities instead of just problems." "Now," Amelia asked. "Now I think you might be exactly what this company needs to remember its purpose." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings and growing attraction that neither was quite ready to acknowledge. The investigation the next morning. David returned to work and quietly began investigating the technical issues that had plagued Amelia's presentation. By afternoon, he had discovered evidence of deliberate file tampering and unauthorized access to her user account. "Someone with administrative privileges deleted your files and corrupted your backup," he explained to Amelia and Jonathan in a private meeting. "The access logs show the activity happened at 11:47 p.m. the night before your presentation." "Has administrative access to the financial department files?" Jonathan asked grimly. "Department heads and senior analysts," David replied. "The specific account used was Rebecca Stone's." Jonathan's expression darkened. Corporate sabotage was serious business, potentially resulting in criminal charges and immediate termination. "Sir," Amelia interjected, "before we take action, I'd like to handle this directly with Rebecca. Sometimes people make mistakes when they feel threatened." "Amelia," Jonathan said seriously, "this wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate sabotage that could have cost us a multi-million-dollar partnership." "I understand that," she replied, "but I also understand what it feels like to be afraid of losing everything you've worked for. Give me one chance to talk to her." Against his better judgment, Jonathan agreed to let Amelia confront Rebecca privately before taking official action. The confrontation. Amelia found Rebecca in the break room that afternoon, preparing her usual afternoon latte with meticulous precision. "Need to talk," Amelia said quietly. Closing the door behind her, Rebecca's composure slipped for just a moment before she recovered her artificial smile. "About what?" "About the files you deleted from my account before the Japanese presentation." Color drained from Rebecca's face, but she maintained her defensive posture. "I don't know what you're talking about." "David found the access logs. Rebecca, your account, your authorization codes, your timing. The evidence is clear." Rebecca's hands shook as she set down her coffee cup. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I've worked 3 years to get where I am. My family expects success. My boyfriend is planning to propose, and his family already thinks I'm not good enough for him. I can't afford to be upstaged by some nobody from Nebraska. So you decided to sabotage me instead of competing fairly?" "Fairly?" Rebecca laughed bitterly. "You think any of this is fair? You walk in here with no experience, no connections, no understanding of how this world works, and suddenly you're Jonathan's golden girl? Do you have any idea how that looks to the rest of us?" Amelia felt a surge of sympathy for Rebecca's desperation, even as she recognized the destructiveness of her actions. "Rebecca, I never asked for special treatment. I just wanted a chance to prove myself." "Now you have it," Rebecca replied, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Jonathan looks at you like you hung the moon, and meanwhile, I'm going to be fired and blacklisted from every decent firm in the city." "Only if we report this officially," Amelia said carefully. "There might be another way." The unexpected resolution that evening, Amelia presented Jonathan with an unusual proposal. Instead of firing Rebecca, she suggested transferring her to a different division where her skills could be better utilized without the direct competition that had led to her desperate actions. You want to reward her for sabotaging you? Asin asked incredulously. I want to give her a chance to redeem herself, Amelia corrected. Rebecca is intelligent and capable. Her mistake was letting fear override her judgment. That's correctable if she's willing to learn from it. And if she tries to sabotage you again? Then we deal with it through official channels, Amelia replied. I believe most people are better than their worst moments given the opportunity. To prove it, Jonathan studied her with growing amazement. You're unlike anyone I've ever met in this business. Is that good or bad? It's extraordinary, he said softly, and the warmth in his voice made her heart skip a beat. The plan worked better than anyone expected. Rebecca, humbled by Amelia's unexpected mercy and terrified of losing her career entirely, threw herself into her new position in the domestic markets division. Within months, she had identified several profitable opportunities and begun rebuilding her reputation based on collaboration rather than competition. Meanwhile, Amelia's success with the Japanese partnership opened doors to other international opportunities. Her unique combination of analytical brilliance and cultural sensitivity made her invaluable for navigating complex global markets. But as her professional star rose, so did the complexity of her relationship with Jonathan Blake. Office gossip began to swirl about the young analyst who had captured the CEO's attention. And Amelia found herself facing challenges that had nothing to do with financial markets and everything to do with matters of the heart. The stage was set for the final test of her worth, not just as a professional, but as a woman who might dare to love a man from a world that had never accepted her as an equal. The Society pages 3 months after the Japanese partnership's success, Amelia Rodriguez had become something of a legend within Blake Industries. Her innovative approaches had saved the company over $15 million, and her reputation for turning around struggling international accounts had earned her respect even from former skeptics. However, with success came scrutiny of a different kind. Margaret Blake, Jonathan's formidable mother and the matriarch of one of New York's oldest banking families, had been watching her son's growing fascination with his star employee with increasing concern. At 62, Margaret possessed the refined elegance that came from generations of wealth and social position. She had married into the Blake dynasty and spent 40 years protecting its interests and reputation. Jonathan, darling, she said, during their weekly lunch at the exclusive Metropolitan Club, I've been hearing interesting things about your work with this Rodriguez girl. Her name is Amelia, mother, and she's a woman. Not a girl, Jonathan replied, cutting into his salmon with perhaps more force than necessary. Of course, dear. Margaret smiled thinly. Tell me about her family background. The Rodriguezes of Nebraska, I assume? I don't recall meeting them on the social circuit. Jonathan set down his fork, recognizing his mother's tactics. Amelia comes from a farming family. Her parents died when she was young, and she was raised by her grandmother. She put herself through college and graduated summa cum laude. How admirable, Margaret said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. Self-made success is always inspiring. But Jonathan, you must understand that personal relationships in our position require certain considerations. The board, the shareholders, the social expectations. What are you really saying, Mother? Saying that tabloid photographers were spotted outside the office last week? People are starting to talk about your late-night meetings with Miss Rodriguez. For both your sakes, perhaps it would be wise to maintain appropriate professional boundaries. The family visit, meanwhile, 800 miles away in rural Nebraska. Thomas Rivera was finishing his evening chores on the small farm where he had worked as a manager for over 20 years. Amelia's father figure since her parents' death, Thomas, had taught her the values of hard work and integrity that had carried her to success in New York. The phone call from his adopted daughter came at sunset. As he was walking back from the barn, "Papa Thomas," Amelia's voice carried across the miles, warm with affection but tinged with uncertainty. "I need to tell you something important." "What is it, Mia? You sound troubled." "I think I'm falling in love with my boss," she confessed. "And I think he might be falling in love with me too." Thomas chuckled softly. "And this is a problem because he's Jonathan Blake. His family owns half of Manhattan, and I'm just a girl from The declaration later that evening, after the formal dinner and speeches, Jonathan and Amelia found themselves alone on a terrace overlooking Central Park. The city lights twinkled below them like earthbound stars, a hint of winter's approach. "I owe you an apology," Jonathan said suddenly. "For what?" "For putting you in this position, for making you uncomfortable by bringing you into my world, without considering how different it would feel for you." Amelia turned to face him fully. "Jonathan, I chose to come here tonight, just like I chose to take the job at Blake Industries. I'm not helpless." "No, you're not helpless," he agreed, stepping closer. "You're brave and brilliant and beautiful, and I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, carrying the weight of everything they meant and everything they would complicate. "I'm falling in love with you too," Amelia whispered. "But Jonathan, your mother made it very clear that I'm not appropriate for someone in your position. The social expectations, the business implications." "My mother doesn't choose who I love," Jonathan said firmly, taking her hands in his. "And neither does society or the board of directors or anyone else. You've changed my life, Amelia. You've changed this company. You've reminded me what it means to work for something meaningful instead of just managing what I inherited." He pulled her closer, and their first kiss was soft and tentative, full of promise and uncertainty in equal measure. The opposition forms unknown to the couple, sharing their moment under the stars. Margaret Blake was having a very different conversation. Inside the hotel ballroom, she had gathered several key board members, including James Fletcher and Trevor Manning, for what she called a discussion about corporate stability. "Gentlemen," Margaret said in her crisp, authoritative tone, "I'm concerned about Jonathan's judgment lately. His infatuation with this Rodriguez woman is becoming a distraction that could affect his leadership. The girl has produced impressive results," James Fletcher admitted reluctantly. "Our international accounts have never been stronger. Results achieved through methods that lack proper oversight," Trevor interjected, still nursing his wounded pride from Amelia's earlier success with the South American accounts. "She operates outside established protocols and undermines senior leadership. More importantly," Margaret continued, "Jonathan's obvious romantic interest in her creates potential scandal and legal liability. What happens when she files a sexual harassment claim? What happens when the tabloids start printing stories about class differences and corporate favoritism?" Isabella Chen, who had been listening from nearby, approached the group with practiced social ease. "Mrs. Blake," she said warmly, "I couldn't help overhearing your concerns. You know, my family has always valued our relationship with Blake Industries. Perhaps there's something I can do to help." Margaret smiled with genuine warmth for the first time that evening. "Isabella, dear, your timing is perfect. I think it's time we reminded Jonathan of the advantages of suitable partnerships, both personal and professional." The ultimatum the next morning brought crisis in an unexpected form. Thomas Rivera had carried out his threat to visit New York, but instead of the confrontation Amelia feared, he brought something worse: perspective. She met him at his modest hotel near the airport, and his weathered face broke into a proud smile when he saw her. "Look at you, Mia," he said, embracing her warmly. "You look like you belong in this big city." "Papa, what are you really doing here?" Amelia asked, knowing the man who had raised her well enough to sense hidden motives. Thomas's expression grew serious. "I came because I got a phone call yesterday from your grandmother." Amelia's heart sank. Grandmother, the woman who had sacrificed everything to raise her after her parents' death, had been fighting cancer for the past year. "The doctors say it's time, Mia. She's asking for you to come home." The words hit Amelia like a physical blow. Her grandmother, the strongest person she had ever known, was dying, and she was asking her granddaughter to leave behind everything she had built in New York to be with family in her final days. "How long?" Amelia whispered. "Maybe weeks, maybe days. She's been holding on, waiting for you to finish your important business here." Amelia closed her eyes, feeling her carefully constructed new life crumbling around her. She had a choice to make: stay in New York and pursue her career and her growing love with Jonathan, return home to honor the woman who had made her success possible. The sacrifice that afternoon, Amelia sat in Jonathan's office, staring out at the Manhattan skyline she had come to love. "I have to go home," she said simply. Jonathan looked up from his computer, not immediately understanding. "Of course. Take whatever time you need. A few days with your family would probably be good for you." "No, Jonathan. I have to go home permanently. My grandmother is dying, and she needs me." The silence that followed was deafening. Jonathan slowly closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. "How long are we talking about?" "I don't know. Maybe weeks, maybe months. But I can't leave her to die alone, not after everything she sacrificed for me." Jonathan stood and began pacing, his business mind immediately searching for solutions. "We'll set up remote work capabilities, video conferences, secure file access, whatever you need to work from, Nebraska." "Jonathan," Amelia said gently, "there isn't reliable internet at my grandmother's house. Even if there were, I need to. Be present for her, not distracted by work, and take a leave of absence. Your position will be waiting when you're ready to return." Amelia shook her head, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "You and I both know that's not realistic. This industry doesn't wait for anyone. By the time I could return, you'd have moved on, the company would have changed, and there wouldn't be a place for me anymore." "Then I'll wait," Jonathan said desperately. "However long it takes, I'll wait for you. And your mother, the board, the social pressures." "Jonathan, be realistic. This gives everyone exactly what they want. Me out of the picture, your reputation protected, your future free to develop along more appropriate lines." Jonathan crossed to her chair and knelt beside it, taking her hands in his. "Amelia, I love you. That doesn't change because of geography or timing or family pressure." "I love you too," she whispered. "Which is why I'm not going to ask you to sacrifice everything for someone who may never be able to return to your world." The goodbye Amelia's last day at Blake Industries was bittersweet. Her colleagues even, those who had initially resented her presence, gathered to wish her well. Rebecca Stone, whose career had been salvaged by Amelia's compassion, presented her with a leather portfolio engraved with her initials. "Thank you," Rebecca said quietly, "for showing me that success doesn't require destroying others." David Park had created a photo album of her time at the company, including pictures from presentations, office celebrations, and candid moments that captured her journey from nervous interviewee to respected executive. Jonathan insisted on driving her to the airport. Despite her protests that a simple goodbye at the office would be easier, "I'm not saying goodbye," he said firmly as they sat in his car outside the terminal. "I'm saying, see you later." "Jonathan, please don't make this harder than it already is. Making you a promise," he replied, turning to face her fully. "Whatever happens with your grandmother, whatever time you need to take, whatever obstacles come between us, I will find a way back to you. This isn't the end of our story, Amelia. It's just a chapter break." He kissed her then, pouring all of his love and determination into that final moment together. When they broke apart, both had tears in their eyes. "Take care of yourself," Amelia whispered, gathering her courage to walk away from everything she had dreamed of having. "Of your family," Jonathan replied. "And remember that you have family here too, whenever you're ready to claim it." The return home, the flight back to Nebraska, gave Amelia time to reflect on the incredible year that had changed her life. She had proven herself in the corporate world, earned the respect of colleagues who had initially dismissed her, and found love with a man who saw her true worth despite the differences in their backgrounds. But as the plane descended toward the familiar landscape of farm fields and small towns, she also remembered her roots and the values that had shaped her. Family came first. Loyalty mattered more than ambition. And sometimes love meant making sacrifices that seemed impossible. Thomas met her at the small regional airport, his weathered face showing relief and sadness in equal measure. "She's been waiting for you," he said simply as they drove through the countryside toward the modest farmhouse where Amelia had grown up. Her grandmother, despite her illness, was alert and smiling when Amelia entered her bedroom. The woman who had raised her with such strength and determination looked fragile in her hospital bed. But her eyes still held the fierce love that had sustained Amelia through every challenge. "Mia," her grandmother whispered, reaching out a trembling hand, "tell me about your adventures in the big city. Tell me about the man who loves you." And so Amelia sat beside her grandmother's bed and told her stories about Manhattan and Blake Industries and the millionaire who had chosen her, despite every reason to choose someone else.